Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and before we get started on tonight's story, I just wanted to tell you about a brand new book that's available now from author JoJo. There are horrors here. Available now on Amazon, on Kindle and paperback, in the link in the description down below. And now, on to tonight's story. It used to be that all I could remember was the screaming, or what I thought was a chaotic wind. The sound was similar to how a harsh wind will rush through the crack of a nearly shut window. The kind that makes the branches of trees smack against the side of your house and brings rain pattering against your roof. I would hear that noise whenever I laid my head to rest as a child. It took so long to fall asleep, and the sound of torment invaded my mind. It wouldn't be until I grew older that the sound would stop haunting me, but never completely. There would still be quiet and lonely nights where I would hear the rushing once again. When I started getting involved with someone was when it was suggested to me that I may be repressing something, that some memory from deep within me was trying to resurface so that I could deal with it. I had never noticed because I slept alone for the most part, but apparently during my slumber I had a habit of shaking violently, as if I was trying to get free of whatever dream I was in. My fingers would grip the pillow until my knuckles turned white. If it weren't for the plush fabric, I'd tear into my own palms. It took me a while to be convinced to actually go see a professional about it. I'd been hearing the wind less, so I figured that at some point it would just go away altogether. Though after some prodigy from my parents, who sheepishly dodged my questions about it, I decided to give it a go. With my back against a leather couch in some stranger's office, I started trying to access memories that I had long forgotten. I remember the sensation of pulling breath into my lungs, feeling so surreal. My chest rising felt heavier than it ever had. Me and the therapist worked together to pinpoint when the trauma might have occurred. Like I said, I remembered hearing the wind as a child, so it had to have been when I was pretty young. My thumb tapped against my pointer finger as I closed my eyes and tried to pull visions from darkness. Slowly as we spoke, the wind returned. I listened to it closely, my therapist's voice mixed in with the bizarre chorus. I began to realize there were several voices all working in tandem to create the wind. Under the wind, I could hear music. It sounded distinctly like carnival music. The most generic, stock sound for carnivals that you could possibly conjure. I could see myself standing in front of a tall mirror. I remember wondering if it was one of those trick mirrors that would distort your figure, but no. No, it was just a tall, simple mirror. I remember standing in front of that mirror for a while. And suddenly I was back there. Back in the carnival as a kid. The mirror was part of admission. There was a line behind waiting for their turn to stand in front of the mirror, resting just before the carnival's entrance. After a minute or so, the ticket taker told me that I was free to enter, and I quickly ran over to my parents who were waiting for me. All three of us were going to see a show that was marketed as a carnival event, the likes of which you'll never forget. It's kind of ironic, huh? I walked through the crowd of people while holding my mother's hand. There were so many people, and I was so nervous, but she kept making sure to quell my fears by offering me quick smiles. We approached a tent as a kid. As a kid, the thing looked like a skyscraper. Top of the orange and red striped tent lifted high in the air. The tip looked like it was about to crash into the moon, or that it was holding it up. I remember the moon being so full picturesque. Everyone shuffled into the tent, and after so meandering, the three of us found seats alongside what looked to be another family. One patron after another entered the tent, and the seats filled up until the place became packed. We watched people scooching over to make room for newcomers until we ourselves had to squeeze closer together. There was a buzz of people talking amongst themselves. The place was like a beehive. Conversation started to die down after a while, though. Casual tones of discussion shifted to quaint whispers of confusion. We had been seated for 5 to 10 minutes, and yet no one had entered the ring in the middle to start the show. Perplexed, we all looked in silence, waiting for a ringmaster to appear, or anyone, for that matter. People started getting irritated, and just as a small gathering of people stood up to leave, a man walked into the ring. He looked so ordinary. He was dressed more for a barbecue than a man who was about to light things on fire and order tigers around. The hush fell over the crowd, and the standing individuals lowered in their seats. Anticipation ran infectious through us. The man outreached his hand and spread his fingers, revealing an empty palm to the audience. From a few seats away from us, I heard mutterings of concern. The man in the ring used his other hand to grip his pointer finger, and without warning, he pulled it back. It was a small snap that sounded like a wet towel hitting linoleum tiles. That expression of awe rang out from the audience as the man let go of his finger. It fell limp and dangled loosely as he gripped his middle finger and pulled back again. Someone seated near us shouted out, demanding to know what was going on. I turned to look at who was yelling. He was easy to pick out, standing amongst a crowd of seated people, all looking at him, all thinking the same thing. He looked exactly like the man in the ring, or maybe the man in the ring looked exactly like him. Even as a child, I could feel something was off. Sure, the adults had the same horrifying thought, as they likely put the pieces together faster than I could. Our attention was snapped back to the stage as a crack rang out, one so loud I thought my ears might pop. The light brown dirt that the ring had as its flooring had become stained and saturated with a spattering of red ooze. The man laid down on the ground, face first and unmoving, red still spilling from his forehead. His eyes, though, they were directed right at the man who was standing in the audience. The source of the crack became clear as a woman in a white dress stepped into the ring, her red lipstick pulled up into a smile. I could already see her, the woman in the crowd, wearing a white dress, striking red lipstick. Though unlike her ring counterpart, her lips portrayed a more concerned expression. The copycat in the ring turned the gun on herself, lifting the barrel to her head and pulling the trigger without hesitation. The woman in the audience had her hands held over her mouth as her copy just kept pulling the trigger. Booming sound after booming sound sent more and more trails of blood onto the dirt, spilling like an art piece. We were all astonished. Everyone likely thought it was staged until it was their doppelganger that stepped out into the ring. One after another. Their mirror-like copies walked out and maimed themselves. Some brought razors. Others had only their hands to tear away at their flesh with, pulling pieces away like they had been slow-roasted. I only imagine the feeling my parents had when they watched me walking into the ring, or rather a copy of me. I looked at him, mesmerized, mulling over every detail, trying to find some flaw in his image of me. Our eyes met. I felt like my energy was being sucked out of me, like I couldn't run if I wanted to. More and more, the crowd erupted into chaos as the bodies started piling up inside of the ring. Each injury was more grotesque than the last. Copies even started interacting with each other, helping increase the creativity in which they could inflict injury. I watched people chew broken shards of glass, people grabbed fistfuls of their hair and pulled until their scalps became a crimson mess of red wires. I couldn't blink. Through all the broken bones and pierced skin, all the displayed organs and the shattered skulls, I couldn't blink. Even as people started running out in a flurry of panicked cries and anguished torment, I couldn't stop looking at myself. He just stared back at me as the chaos unfolded around him. My father scooped me up, holding me and rushing me to the tent's exit. Still, I watched myself. As long as I could, I watched myself bend over, pick up the gun the woman in the white dress had used. Bodies rushed by my view as people ran out. It was like frames of animation were chopping up as my copy brought the pistol up and put the barrel under his chin. His somber expression peered back at me, and as he left my view and we left the tent, I heard a pop. Loud and familiar cracking. My family was quick, rushed along the tide of people fleeing. As we left, there was a sign that hung over the exit of the carnival grounds, a simple phrase, but one that I'll carry with me for far longer than the screams I used to be ravaged by as a child. Big and dark, bold letters that read, "Which side of the mirror were you on?" Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video or listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. If you guys are interested in finding audiobooks from me, a brand new audiobook's out. There's an audiobook. It's Pastel-Colored Dreams and Human-Flavored Nightmares, written by Vincent Venicava, which some of you might know as a really cool dude that I work with quite often, actually. You can head over to audible.com and find Mr. Creepypasta to see all the audiobooks I've worked on, including Tales from the Gas Station and many, many more. And like always, I want to give a big thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon. You guys, as always, are the real MVPs. And I really appreciate it. If you guys want to join them, you can head over to patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta and see all these cool, fine folk that I'm about to mispronounce the names of here or in the description down below. People such as Jacob Schaefer, Zach, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Brian Ars, Ken Lando Higuchi, Bobby Karman, Tristan Pelton, Chase Burnett, Diana Kraus, Melancholy Corpse, Hollow Zero, Ferb, Harley, Tainted Raven, Katie Birch, Sashi Suzaku, Katrina Beisel, Kayden the Spooky Boy, Zane Nightshade, MyBodySoundsLikeRiceKrispys, AshWood, Lord of the Weebs, Jay, Miss Xandra, MrUnsettlingSpaghetti, Eurogore, Tsuji Campbell, Marco Takes Dabs 420, Stricken, Azurine Fox, Robert White, Andre Garcia, Snails Brennard, Legit Quad Feed, Fried Chicken 12, James Bruce, Chris Levins, Freddy Krueger, Tynanny, 1-800-Nightmare, Unknown Nobody, Michael Scarborough, Infernal One, James Lowe, Lisa Cottrell, Jimbo the Hutt, Caspian, Jordan Els, Hades' Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Cryptic Nightmares, Brennan Wright, Someone You Love, Kiri the Sloth, Tommy Green, Liam Newman, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Nina Smith, Nico Kaio, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, Trace Miles, and Corey Kenshin. Thank you guys, as always, for supporting the channel. You're all wonderful. I love every single one of you guys. For real, you guys help me out so much, as well as everybody down there in the description below, as well as everybody else who watches and subs and does everything else with this channel. Thank you guys so much. And as always, sweet dreams.